Down $1.75 today, 14 million shares traded. Investors apparently concerned that British Telecom's purchase of MCI must overcome numerous regulatory hurdles in both the United States and the United Kingdom. Shares of BT down 1 3/8. AT&T up 50 cents a share. The deal, MCI British Telecom, valued at just about $21 billion. It would be the third largest U.S. acquisition ever. Two other telecom deals making headlines tonight. The Justice Department has approved the U.S. West Continental Cablevision merger. Continental, however, must sell its stake in Teleport. That's a local access provider for businesses based in Staten Island, New York. Justice also giving SBC Communications the nod to buy Pacific Telesis, paying $16.5 billion. The move creates a telecommunications powerhouse, a market capitalization of $46 billion. Well, those are the day's top business stories. I'm Lou Dobbs here in New York. Now we go back to Bernard Shaw and Judy Woodruff in Atlanta for more CNN election night coverage.
All right, thank you, Lou. And I have this little bit of, I don't know whether you'd call it trivia, it depends on where you're coming from, but under Bill Clinton, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and maybe Lou Dobbs is still listening, he can correct me if I'm wrong, had its third best showing in a presidential term. And that goes all the way back to the 1800s.
We mentioned a few minutes ago whether voters were going to vote for a Republican Congress and a Democratic president. That's a possibility. It could be that they don't actually deliberately say, I'm going to go out and vote for one party for president and the other for Congress. There is the possibility that if the voters know that the economy is doing pretty well, there doesn't seem to be a lot of angry voters out there, maybe they just go to the polls and say, I'm going to vote for the status quo, the incumbent president, the incumbent member of Congress. That would give the Republicans control of Congress. They did that in the 80s when they voted for Ronald Reagan and then re-elected Democrats to the House of Representatives.
What we're looking at, and we should remind our viewers, one of the things that we'll be watching closely tonight, especially at Frank Sesno's desk, is this business of the Republican freshmen, 70 Republican freshmen who are running. And John McCormick, old Speaker John McCormick from Massachusetts, used to say to freshmen, to all freshmen, some of you were elected by mistake. None of you will be re-elected by mistake, as an admonition to get out there and campaign. And boy, those Republican freshmen have done so, and they've raised a ton of money, and that could be a factor in this entire evening.
It's been a lot of interesting races to look at, and there's much, much more to talk about, many more races to look at tonight. When we come back, we're going to hear from our own Bill Schneider and his device over there, the Cody, about what we're seeing in the exit polls that we have results. We'll be right back.
From time to time, you're going to see lots of people in white shirts, other colored shirts behind us, working feverishly at monitors. And then, lo and behold, I turn to Bill Schneider, our political analyst, and he has lots of information. And you take us to the Northeast now.
That's right. I'm going to tell you about New Hampshire, a state where Democrats have done very well. They picked up a Senate seat in New Hampshire, as Frank Sesno reported. The big issue in New Hampshire was the economy and jobs. And that clearly paid off for Bill Clinton. Those voters who said the economy and jobs was the top issue voted 2/3 for Bill Clinton over Bob Dole. It's a booming economy there, and that paid off for Clinton and the Democrats for governor and for senator as well. Now, Vermont. Vermont is a state that has a lot of independents. It was a good Perot state. He got 23% in 1992. And independents who have usually tilted towards the Republicans, in this case, voted for Bill Clinton by a clear and solid majority. Now, how in the world did South Carolina elect or re-elect a 93-year-old man for their incumbent senator? Well, let's ask them this. Did Dole's age affect his ability to be president? And the answer was no, it did not. They weren't particularly worried about Bob Dole's age. Then we asked them, what about Strom Thurmond's age? Did that affect his ability to serve effectively as senator? And they said, yes, it did. A majority said Thurmond was too old to serve effectively as senator. And how in the world did they re-elect Strom Thurmond? Among those who said his age would affect his ability, a third of them voted for Strom Thurmond. So what we're seeing here is a lot of people said Thurmond's too old to be senator, he can't serve effectively, but a third of them went ahead and voted for Thurmond anyway. He's an institution in South Carolina.
I would guess that organization did it.
Right, exactly.
Thank you, Bill Schneider.
Sure.
All right, and that 104-year-old former babysitter.
Yeah.
We've been hearing Bill talk about the Senate wins in New Hampshire and in South Carolina. Let's go now to Frank Sesno at our congressional desk for the very latest new information that he has on Senate and House races. Frank.
Well, thanks very much, Judy. We're going to start with the Senate, of course. We're going to come over to Bruce Morton as we do so, and we're going to start with the New Hampshire race. As you mentioned, Dick Swett winning. That's a pickup for the Democrats, Bruce, in the state of New Hampshire.
There were issue differences between them, Frank. Swett would have claimed to be the superior environmentalist. He was more or less for abortion rights. Bob Smith was staunchly anti-abortion. But it may simply have been that after 6 years, the voters looked at Smith and said, I can't really think of anything very much that he's done. He was elected in an off year when party activists tend to turn out, in a presidential year with a bigger turnout that may simply have worked against him.
You mentioned environment. He was endorsed, Swett was, by the Sierra Club. On to South Carolina, where we also have a result, as we talked about just a moment ago. Senator Strom Thurmond winning there. You know, Elliott Close tried to make age the issue, but only just. He said, this election is about the next century, not the last one.
I think, and a lot of people I talked to in South Carolina thought that somebody could have beaten Strom Thurmond this year. Elliott Close was not that somebody. I went with him to the big BMW factory down there. Workers streamed by, and he stood talking to his guide, who later came over to me and said, what's with this guy? Everybody else I bring out here dives into the crowd. He just stands here. He's a very shy man. He spent a lot of his own money. The Democrats tried to recruit businessmen who would do that, but he's just not a very good politician.
Bruce, you also spent time in the state of Georgia following the Senate race here. Guy Milner against Max Cleland. Still, we don't have a result here, monitoring results.
We may be here for a while on that one, Frank. Guy Milner is a very rich man, self-made, and he has spent millions of dollars. I sat in the hotel room the other night and saw 3 Milner ads in a row go by. Max Cleland started out better known. He was Jimmy Carter's head of the Veterans Administration, wounded in the Vietnam War. Terrific personal story, but money may tell.
And speaking of money may tell, the state of Virginia, the Warners.
Well, that was another of the Democrats' rich businessman candidates, young Mark Warner against John Warner, who, of course, split the Republican Party when he refused to back Oliver North 2 years ago. Nevertheless, Virginian Republicans seem to have forgiven him now.
Okay, Bruce, we're going to come back and look more at the Senate with you in just a moment. We want to come back over here and make reference to our balance of power, which we'll be doing throughout the evening to keep you updated on really what's at stake and how the numbers break down. The Senate coming into this evening, where it went 53 seats for the Republicans, 47 seats for the Democrats, here designated in blue. 3 seats, a pickup, 3 seats for the Democrats, and they take control. 34 seats are at stake this evening, so we'll be watching this very closely throughout the evening. Now over to the United States House of Representatives, where all 435 seats are up for grabs. The House that Newt built is very much in place. Stu Rothenberg, we've been looking at several of them here. Go ahead.
Well, we've got some partial results, a number of interesting races in Indiana, 10th Congressional District. Virginia Blankenbaker, a Republican, 47% of the vote, to Julia Carson, a Democrat, 53%. This is an open Democratic seat that the Republicans have wanted to pick up. And in Kentucky's 3rd Congressional District, Republican Ann Northrup against Democratic incumbent Mike Ward.
Now here the Democrat is the freshman.
That's right, Democratic freshman. There have been very few Democratic incumbents who are vulnerable. Northrup now leads 51-49, a very close race Republicans have been hoping for a pickup.
Over in Kentucky 4, just to prove that we can have fun a little bit here, we brought this one up.
We actually have a winner. And this is for those people who regret the fact that the baseball season is over, Frank. We can give them some sports news tonight. Jim Bunning, great Hall of Fame pitcher, re-elected a Republican seat. Republican district, not a great surprise.
Let's move north into the state of New Hampshire. Open district there. It's a familiar name.
New Hampshire's 1st Congressional District, an open Republican seat. John Sununu, son of the former governor, former White House Chief of Staff, in a close race, we think, with Joe Keefe, Democratic state chairman. Going to be a good race.
Let the record show that John Sununu said his son would win. We'll see. In Georgia, meanwhile, Georgia 4, a tough race here.
A race that really has sort of the darker side in terms of charges back and forth, charges of race and of religion involved. Cynthia McKinney, Democratic incumbent, redistricted, angry about the redistricting. The Republican is John Mitnick. a Jewish, self-described moderate Republican. Very bitter race.
Stu, let me just stop you for a minute. You mentioned redistricting. Not everybody is familiar with what the Supreme Court did and how that affected some of these districts. This is one of them. Take just a moment and explain it.
Sure, Frank. There are a number of districts, particularly in the South, talking about North Carolina, Texas, Louisiana, and Georgia, that were redrawn to deal with the problem. The court found that many of the districts were gerrymandered, drawn primarily for racial reasons. This was one of the districts redrawn. Cynthia McKinney was very upset that the district suddenly was very different from the one that she had been elected in, and she's running anyway, and she stands a reasonable chance of winning.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. Stu Rothenberg, Bruce Morton, we're going to have more of this throughout the evening, and we'll have more from the national desk on the presidential and other races and beyond when our coverage continues after this.
Well, you heard Bruce Morton talking about sitting in a hotel room and seeing 3 of one candidate's TV commercials go swish, swish, swish. In Washington, our man Brooks Jackson, he's been following the money all throughout this campaign 96. Brooks, lots of ads, lots of dirt. You take it from there.
Well, Bernie, never has so much money been spent on so many political ads. Ads that often worked well for the politicians, but not so well for the voters.
Remember the New Hampshire primary? In the polls, Bob Dole was sinking while Lamar Alexander was surging, until Dole claimed Alexander had been a liberal as governor of Tennessee.
He increased the sales tax 85%.
False. Alexander raised sales taxes only 22% to pay for education, not 85%. But Dole's false ad finished Alexander. He came in third and soon quit the race. President Clinton's anti-Dole ad started last March and hammered away month after month.
Republicans will stop at nothing to stop President Clinton. Republicans cut school lunches, cut Head Start.
Also, false advertising. Congress ultimately increased school lunches and Head Start. Clinton exaggerated shamelessly about Medicare.
The Dole-Gingrich budget tried to cut Medicare $270 billion.
In fact, Clinton proposed to cut Medicare growth $124 billion over 7 years, and Republicans had reduced their cuts to $168 billion by the time Clinton's ads ran. The big Republican exaggeration concerned taxes.
Under Clinton, the typical American family now pays over $1,500 more in federal taxes.
In fact, the typical family paid more taxes because it had $6,000 more income under Clinton. Clinton's gasoline tax only cost the average family about $40 a year. Other Clinton taxes hit only the most affluent families. Accuracy and fairness still take a back seat in campaigns. As one ad maker put it, we're trying to win an election, not run a think tank. Judy?
All right, Brooks Jackson, thanks. Well, one of the states where they've been running some tough ads is North Carolina. The polls are about to close there in just a few minutes. Our own Natalie Allen is there at the headquarters of Senator Jesse Helms. Natalie, what news do you have to report?
Well, Judy, polls close in 3 minutes. The banjos are strumming. People are filling in here at Helms headquarters, and the Republican state leaders still tell us they predict a clean victory for Jesse Helms. They say voter turnout has been heavy in areas important to him. But just last night, Democratic challenger Harvey Gantt's people were almost giddy, feeling a surge in their candidate's chances. And think about that, a black Democrat unseating a conservative icon, Uncle Jess, as he is known in these parts, would be the political story of modern times in North Carolina. Back to the national desk.
Thank you very much, Natalie, and we'll be right back with more of our extensive coverage of Campaign 96 on this election night.